Most people look at the world and think it's random. Oil jumps, inflation rises, the Fed talks, banks tighten, real estate slows down. To most people, it feels like separate headlines flying across the screen. However, operators do not see random events. Operators look for the change. Every day, the market throws a new headline at you. Oil jumps, jobs report comes in strong. Inflation comes back hot, the Fed holds rates steady. A war headline moves energy markets. Most people react. They worry. They scroll. They guess. Then tomorrow, they do it again. The operator asks a different question. Not, what happened today? The question is, what happens next? Because one event usually creates another event. And if you can follow the chain far enough, you may see opportunity before the crowd know what it's looking at. Most people see a headline and stop there. They see Iran talks still on. They see oil jumps. They see markets move, then treat it like news. However, the headline is not the lesson. The headline is only the first part. The operator sees the same headline and asks one question. So what? Not in a careless way. In a serious way. So what happens next? If oil moves, what does that touch? If energy costs rise, where does that pressure go? If pressure moves through the economy, who feels it last? That's how the chain begins. Here's the real world spark. A geopolitical headline hits. Oil jumps. Markets react. Most people read that and move on. However, if you're trying to understand real estate and can't stop at the article, you have to ask, how does this headline travel? Oil often moves before people feel the impact. Energy is not something you put in the car. Energy moves trucks, ships, factories, construction, utilities, supplies. When oil rises, the cost does not stay trapped inside the barrel. It starts moving through the system. Energy becomes cost. The truck delivering food pays more. The builder moving material pays more. The landlord paying utilities may pay more. The insurance company pricing risk may adjust. The contractor repairing the roof may charge more. Energy hides inside almost every price tag. That's why oil matters. When enough costs rise across the economy, inflation starts fighting back. Inflation is not just one number. It is pressure spreading through thousands of prices. Food, fuel, labor, insurance, materials, services. And when inflation refuses to cool down, the Federal Reserve starts paying attention. The Fed does not like inflation moving away from target. So if inflation stays sticky, rate cuts get delayed. Markets may want lower rates. Investors may want lower rates. Real estate owners may need lower rates. However, the Fed follows inflation first. And if inflation stays high, rates can stay higher for longer. Higher rates make money more expensive. That sounds simple. However, this is where real estate starts feeling the change. The same apartment building can look completely different under a new loan. At 3.5%, the payment may work. At 7.5%, the same property may not. The builder did not change. The money changed. Then the refinance wall appears. A commercial loan matures. The owner has to refinance. Yesterday's debt is gone. Today's debt is more expensive. The banks want updated numbers, higher rates, higher insurance, higher taxes, stronger coverage. And suddenly, the owner is not dealing with a headline anymore. He is dealing with a deadline. The new loan terms arrive. Same building, same tenant, same owner. However, the math is different. Old rate, new rate. Old payment, new payment. This is where owners begin to realize something important. The property may still be decent. However, the debt may no longer fit. Most motivated sellers are not cartoon villains. They're not always lazy. They are not always bad operators. Sometimes they are just under pressure. Payments rise, insurance rise, taxes rise. The lenders want more. The clock keeps moving. And when pressure builds long enough, owners start looking for options. At some point, pressure turns into a conversation. The owner calls a broker or answers a buyer or quietly asks what the building may be worth. This does not mean they are desperate. It means they are trying to solve a problem. And that is where the operator starts paying attention. Most people see stress. The operator sees a situation. Most people see a motivated seller. The operator sees a person trying to solve a problem. Most people see risk. The operator sees information. The best deals do not start with exploitation. They start with understanding. Before the offer, before the spreadsheet, before the underwriting, there's a conversation. The owner says, rates went up, insurance went up, taxes went up, everything changed, and the operator does not pitch, he listens. Walk me through it. Great operators do not start with offers, they start with questions. When is the loan mature? What is the current payment? What is the new payment? How's occupancy? What happened to insurance? What happened to taxes? Before you can solve a problem, you have to understand the facts. Every property has a story. Opinions do not tell it, numbers do. The rent roll tells one story, the expenses tell another, the loan tells a third. The operator's job is to put those pieces together and find the truth hiding inside the file. Then the first red flag appears, insurance double. That one line could change the whole deal, not because the property is bad, not because the tenants disappear, not because the owner forgot how to operate. Sometimes the world changes around the property and the numbers reveal it first. Then the operator keeps turning pages. Repairs are up, maintenance is up, management costs are up, insurance is up, taxes may be up too. Now it's no longer one problem, it is a pattern. The building is being squeezed from multiple directions. Then the pattern becomes clear. Expenses are growing faster than income. That is the real problem. The owner may still be collecting rent. The units may still be occupied. The building may still look fine from the street. However, if costs outrun income, cash flow starts getting trapped. Then comes the pressure point. The loan comes due in 6 months. And if the owner cannot refinance, now they have a real problem. This is where the chain becomes personal. Not oil, not inflation, not the Fed, a deadline, a lender, a payment, a decision. The operator looks at the building differently now. This did not start with the apartment. It started long before the apartment. A headline moved oil. Oil moved costs. Costs moved inflation. Inflation moved rates. Rates moved lending. Lending moved the owner, and now the owner is sitting across the table. Most people see the apartment and say, it's just a building. The operator sees something else. No, it is the end of a chain. By the time the opportunity reaches real estate, it has already traveled through the world, the economy, the banks, the debt, and the owner situation. Most people study the property. Operators study the forces acting on the property. Geopolitical risks, oil, inflation, rates, credit, loan maturity pressure, apartment owner, opportunity. That is the chain. And if you learn how to follow it, real estate starts looking differently. Headlines tell you what happened. Chains tell you what happens next. A headline gives you the event, a chain gives you the consequence. And consequences are what operators find their edge, because the opportunity is really sitting inside the news. It is usually downstream. The headline was never the opportunity, the consequences were. The oil move was not the deal, the inflation pressure was not the deal. The Fed decision was not the deal. The deal appeared later. When all of those forces created pressure on a real property owner, that is operator thinking. This is AICG Intelligence. We do not chase noise, we follow the chain. Headlines are the spark, consequences are the fire, opportunity is downstream. Follow the chain.